Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us right now from our New York City studio is political strategist, Newsmax contributor, and author of the book Hopelessly Divided, Doug Schoen. Doug, it's always great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
It's our pleasure. President Obama embarks on what's being called his economic roadshow this week, and according to sources inside the White House, the president is going to try and refocus Washington's attention back on jobs and the economy. The president's first speech on this topic is taking place at Knox College, where he made a big speech back in 2005. But I wanted to ask you, Doug, to whom are his comments really directed? Members of Congress or the American people?
I think it's both. I think he is trying to pin the blame on Congress for the inaction and dysfunctionality that we see in the nation's capital, but he's also trying to say to the American people he understands that with 52% in a Rasmussen poll last week saying we're in a recession and unemployment still a stubbornly high 7.5%, that we've got to do something. We've got to do something pretty quickly.
Now, how would you classify this? Is it fair to say it's a preemptive strike against Republicans as these critical budget deadlines keep approaching, I should say, the debt ceiling, things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Look, the president understands that he's unlikely to win a up or down referendum on his own performance, particularly on the economy. So what he has figured out is that if he makes the contest a clear choice between two views, two visions, the Democratic view, his view, and the Republican view, he has a better chance simply because Republicans at this point are so unpopular.
Now, the president can't talk about the economy without mentioning Detroit, right? But after claiming that his policies have basically saved the auto industry, how does Mr. Obama address the situation in Detroit?
Well, I think he's going to talk about the need for infrastructure, more stimulus, and basically bailing out urban America. I think he's got to do it, but I doubt if he will have as his central focus what he and his colleagues hope is localized to be a arguably specific problem, which is distinctive to Detroit.
But you would say, though, that he has to raise this issue. He can't just, gloss over it.
No, he can't gloss over the fact that I think the seventh largest city in the country's gone bankrupt. But on the other hand, he has to try to reassure and stabilize the markets, because the thing that would be calamitous for him would be a string of municipal bankruptcies that could cause real panic.
Now, Republicans, focusing on the debt ceiling, if we can, for a second, Republicans are really kind of digging in their heels already. This isn't real front page news at this point, but when you hear them talking about the prospect of raising the debt ceiling, they're saying things like the president needs to sign off on Paul Ryan's plan to cut Medicare, or he needs to make drastic cuts or support drastic cuts to food stamps or drastic cuts to Medicaid, or even scrap Obamacare altogether. Obviously, these are non-starters from a Democratic perspective. But do you believe the House Republicans are really ready to do a real battle over the debt ceiling like we saw in 2011?
I think they're willing to do a battle, but I think they'll do what the Republicans have been doing pretty consistently, as the Senate Republicans did last week on the filibuster, which is to cave. I don't believe that the Republicans will want to paralyze the government and potentially shut the government down over the debt ceiling. Of course, I could be wrong, but bottom line, I've seen no evidence to suggest that the American people have any appetite for that sort of a controversy.
And so when you hear some House members talk about things like, the president needs to scrap Obamacare if I'm going to vote to raise the debt ceiling, this is really just Congressional Saber rattling, if you will.
That's what I think. I mean, look, the Republicans play to their base. They need to hold on to 218 seats. The first rule of politics is that it's all local, and I think that this is exactly what you say, John, saber rattling.
Now, you talked about how the president's realizing, the dire straits the economy seems to be in, at least in the perception of the American people. You mentioned that Rasmussen poll. But we've known this for the length of his entire presidency, basically since the economy hit the skids, that it's still the most important issue to the American people. And, whether it's that Rasmussen poll or some other information, the president finally seems to be waking up to this. But the question is, why has it taken him so long? We're almost a year now after his reelection. Why has it taken him so long to focus on the economy, not things like gun control?
I don't know why it's taken him so long is the real answer. And I don't know why he hasn't reached out in a bipartisan way, and I don't know why he hasn't tried to fashion solutions that would benefit the country and bring people both in Washington and outside Washington onto the same page. That, to me, is one of his great failings and something I just really can't account for.
Now, we know that the President and Speaker Boehner are talking a little bit more frequently than they have been when things are really bad between the two. But Speaker Boehner has his own kind of problems in the House. And we mentioned some of the things that we're hearing from House Republicans. We also know that they're focused on issues like a special investigation into Benghazi, or a special investigation perhaps into the IRS situation, voting for the 38th time to repeal or defund Obamacare in some way, shape, or form. Will all of that overshadow what the president's trying to do? Or if Republicans keep talking about those issues which are kind of tangential to the economy, could that backfire and blow up in their faces?
Well, I think the Republicans are again worried about the issue of the scandals backfiring. I think that's one of the reasons why you haven't seen a select committee appointed for each and every one of the scandals. I think that Boehner understands that he needs progress, but he also needs to keep his caucus together. And I think it's one of the reasons why immigration is so problematic for him, because it isn't clear to me he can get a majority of the Republicans in the House to vote for the immigration bill, which includes a pathway to citizenship that some of his more conservative colleagues call amnesty.
Yeah, and especially if you look at the farm bill, you could easily make the case that the Speaker has maybe lost a little bit of his grip on his caucus. How critical are these next few months? You mentioned immigration reform, but we also have these issues, the debt ceiling and budgetary issues as well. How critical are these next few months for the Speaker, and what's the best possible outcome he can hope for as Washington gears up for these entrenched debates?
Yeah, I think the best possible outcome he can hope for is to get through them unscathed and to hope that the Republican Party doesn't fracture, whether it be over immigration or something else. I think he is going to have a tough issue dealing with the budget. It is a non-starter, as you point out, the Ryan plan for Democrats. And it's unlikely that anyone other than maybe 20 or 30 Democrats will go along with repealing or even freezing Obamacare, all or in part. So bottom line, I think these are still going to be very polarized times, very divided times. And I think it's going to be hard to keep the Republican caucus together and the Republican Party together in the face of strong support for what I have to call a failing Obama agenda, especially with the Marist poll today showing that his approval rating, the president's, is down close to 40%.
Now, who would you rather be in all this, John Boehner or President Obama?
I think I'd probably rather be President Obama because you control the bully pulpit. But if you look at where the president's numbers have been going and how he's been received, it certainly isn't a great position to be in.
I guess if you had the choice of Speaker of the House or President of the United States, you're going to pick the president.
Usually
comes along with that every time. All right. So we talked about the best case scenario for Speaker John Boehner. Let's talk about the worst possible case scenario. What do you see that as?
I see the worst possible case scenario is the Republican Party divides over the immigration bill. It doesn't get passed. The party overreaches or appears to overreach on the debt ceiling. The government is threatened with closure. Again, the Republican brand is weakened. The Democrats beat up on them. And it's not that the Democrats get more popular, it's that the Republicans get less popular.
Yeah, let's, it doesn't seem like there are a lot of easy answers for Speaker Boehner or for the president. Let's focus a little bit on Obamacare if we can. We've already gotten a hint of how the president is going to try and tout his health care law, thanks to the speech that he gave last week. But we also now know he's enlisting the help of some celebrities to help try and promote the law. From a PR standpoint, is this a good move, do you think, or a bad move for the president?
I think it's one of desperation. They've tried to sell the bill on its merits. They had to delay the implementation of the employer mandate. Now there's some efforts to delay the implementation of the individual mandate, which, if that happened, would gut the entire legislation. I think they're throwing long bombs, and anybody and everybody who can help sell it is welcome.
And Desperate is not a place that the administration had hoped to be at this point. We also heard last week during that same speech the president promised, and we've heard him promise this before, that these healthcare exchanges are going to be ready come October 1st. But we've also seen this delay on the employer mandate, very key provision of Obamacare coming from the White House. If there are significant glitches, as people are predicting, when folks go online to try and register for these state exchanges, do you think, and if these glitches are significant, will this effectively kill the healthcare law?
Well, if the employer mandate is followed by a freeze in the individual mandate, that would effectively kill the legislation. And if you look at the polls, which show that close to 6 in 10 want to either roll back part of it or all of it, I think this is a measure that is in dire trouble before it's been even fully implemented.
Yeah, and it certainly seems from what the president was saying last week that he's kind of pushing all his chips into the middle of the table here, and I guess we'll find out October 1st what kind of hand he's holding. Doug Schoen, always a pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much for being with us.
John, thank you as always for having me.
All right, have a great day, and thanks very much for watching Newsmax TV.